What's going on today, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with Rodney Ahenkan. This is a brother from Australia. I want to thank you, brother, for joining us on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here or be there because you're in Houston and I'm in Sydney, I think. So, yeah, I'm in the future.
Definitely. So, Rodney, could you tell us just a little bit about, Australia in the sense, were you born there? Because I hear the accent.
Yeah, well, I was born in Sydney, which should be the capital city of Australia. Been here all my life. I'm a African Australian, as I like to subcategorize now. Originally from Ghana, West Africa, where my parents come from. So I have a whole bunch of things inside of me with the Aussie slang and with the Ghanaian slang and getting used to balancing the two cultures.
So, you stated that your parents originally came from Ghana, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Have you been there?
I've been there 3 times actually, and I'm very bilingual. I eat all the food, but yeah, no matter what, I can't shake my accent. So when I go to Ghana, uh, ironically, they call me white boy. There's a term that they use called Obroni, but yeah, they call me the white boy because of my accent, and I'm obviously not a local, so you know, that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear too many black people having your type of accent, especially black men.
Yeah, well, yeah. But even the Australians think I'm from London, so no one knows where I'm from. I like to keep myself mysterious in that sense.
Yeah, I hear that. So in Australia itself, now you would be categorized, you said, as an African Australian. But
African.
okay, but what about the people who are originally indigenous to that land? Because they were originally African too. Let's call it what it is. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the touchy thing because there's a growing thing now of African Americans saying that we're not African American because we're not from Africa. So it's I guess it's each to their own in that sense. But yeah, the traditional custodians of this land, which we call the Aboriginal people, the Indigenous people, were here, according to historians, millions of years ago. And they were the original inhabitants, kind of like the Native Americans in America, where they were the original inhabitants of that land until you know things happened.
right. Well, as a African American, I don't know which ones you've been listening to, but education wise, all life started in Africa and everybody spread out. So the indigenous people,
Yeah,
they are
definitely,
Africans.
definitely. Yeah, but when I guess when you're in a public setting in a public light, even if you have your own set of values and morals, when you're on a stage where there are all different types of people talking and different types of people listening, you got to kind of tread the line of what is appropriate to say, what is not appropriate to say. I may believe one thing, but that's not something I just blurt out. Out in the public like that. So I try to be a bit sensitive, because if you were to tell a traditional custodian of this land in Australia that they're originally African, some of them will say, yeah, they're from Tanzania, because they can trace that historically. A lot of them would say that no, they're not. They're originally from this land. So that is why I try to, tread kind of lightly on that retrospect.
Correct. I was watching a recent news clip, and you had an
Mm-hmm.
actress that was speaking on the panel, and she labeled herself as part of the indigenous people, and she was really going in on the Caucasians there because how they always basically they treat us, no matter if you call yourself Aboriginal, Indigenous to Australia, of course, black people were here before the transatlantic slave trade in America
Right,
as well.
right, right,
But no matter where the colonizer goes, we always will be treated less than and marginalized, undervalued, etc. So, how is life over there for black and also indigenous people in relation to Australia, the Caucasians at
right,
least?
right. I got you. I guess I'm going to split that answer into two.
Okay.
and say first of all that how you're treated or how you feel you're treated is a matter of being subjective. Okay, so you can say that we've been marginalized, we've been looked down on, but I actually see that, and I think that we are a threat to whatever the big picture is, to whatever their mission is that whenever you're oppressed, it means that the oppressor sees something of value in you that is greater than them. And so I think if we see light and life in that retrospect, we won't come across, and I know this is going to sound sensitive, but according to other people, we won't come across as the victims all the time, where we feel like we're trying to get back at, the oppressor. Whereas we should be understanding that we were already at a high level, and that we need to get at a high level despite who the oppressor is. We were already high beings at the beginning of time. We were already people that were of value, that people of integrity, people of wealth and stature. And so if we're trying to prove a point against the so-called oppressor who happen to be Caucasian, we're only going to get to the level that they allow us. We're only going to get to the level that we think we should be instead of being the place where we ought to be. So that's part one of the question. Part two, in regards to Australia, I would say it's so hard now because in this society, everything is categorized. So if you're saying that, life is tough for a black person, then you have to say, okay, what type of black person? Because Indians consider themselves to be black, even though geographically they're Asian. You have the Papua New Guineans, you have people from New Zealand, Samoa, you have people from Fiji, you have the South Sea Islanders, which are, have been marginalized since the beginning of time, and haven't even been looked at in the same light of Aborigines. You have the Torres Strait Islanders who are also black. So you have all these subcategories of people who are black. Now, in contrast to what's happening to America, I can say, thankfully, we don't get that same sort of treatment. But that treatment is still there, but it's more subliminal. Australia is a very sarcastic nation. So that they won't be so direct towards why they don't like you, but they'll marginalize you in a way where that you don't even see them marginalizing you. The issue is that more or less it's another two-part thing, because there are so many African Australians. So that's African Australians are the Africans who are pretty much the second generation. They were born here, they were raised here, but they have African roots. And then you have the Africans who have come from Africa, who were born in Africa and who have come here. And for some reason, they try and mimic what they think is the American reality of the Bloods and the Crips and the gangster life. And that has been portrayed from Hollywood in the wrong light, where they mimic that in society. And so you have a group of minorities, and I don't mean minorities in terms of color of the skin, but minorities as in a small group of people, whether they be black or whether they be Aboriginal or whether they be any other ethnicity, doing crime to emulate what they see on TV. And because of that, that stereotype has then wiped itself onto us, the African Australians, to be looked at as the same as those who have come from overseas to here. So the beef or the friction is manyfold. We have our own battles with, sometimes with the Aborigines, and I don't mean that there's an actual beef going on, but when it comes to the identity of being black, and we talk about the struggle and what we went through, it's normally combated with, well, we went through struggle too, and it's kind of measuring who went through a worse struggle to validate who was the biggest victim. You know what I mean? So there's that element. And then there's the African Australians and the African Africans who came to Australia who also have their beef. And that's guys, stop portraying something that is not us, because people are looking at us in the same way. And then you have, the blacks against, I guess, what you call other. And that could be looked at in many different terms and many different ways. But the shocking thing of all of that is that I've had a relatively good experience being a black man in Australia. And that is because maybe I speak the vernacular. I've always had a good paying job. I've always been in corporate offices and whatnot. I've transitioned into Forex. And so people have looked at Forex as this white dominated thing, going back to the Rothschilds and whatnot. But I'm in my element, in my niche. The controversial thing I'm going to say is that I have a harder time being a Christian in Australia than being a black person in Australia. Why? Because Australia even though they consider themselves to be a Christian nation, they are far from that. And so anything you say or do when it comes to speaking in your truth automatically defies what other people believe in. And so when you're speaking in the truth that you believe a certain way, and people in Australia, the majority that are so carefree, they don't have any respect for spirituality, they don't care about, the foundations of even Islam, Buddhism, or any other religion. When you're walking in that framework of being a religious person, you tend to be persecuted more. Okay, I just happen to be part of both worlds, where I'm black and a Christian in Australia, and I'm second generation as well, where I speak like them but I don't look like them. So it's kind of hard to navigate your way around in this society.
All right, now you were speaking about earlier, about we were talking about victims, and I remember you saying that. And I will have to say, people, especially us throughout the diaspora, we are victims of white supremacy and white supremacist terrorism. It's just bottom line. It's the things that we've been put in. I was listening to the Aboriginal woman stating the statistics with their people versus the Caucasians that run the country. I'm pretty sure it's probably the same way for African Australians as well. Is we have to not say that we're not victims. Now, I understand the purpose of victimizing yourself so much that you can't do nothing. And I think that's what people get confused with versus us being actual victims of things that's not our fault.
No, I get you in that retrospect, but I'm not dismissing the struggle. I don't want anyone or any listener to think that I'm dismissing the struggle. But what I am trying to say also is that there is a mentality amongst our own culture that is like, okay, well, if you struggled, I'm going to show you my struggle that beats your struggle to see who has struggled the most. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're talking about basically the oppression Olympics, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't get into that.
Never ending. And I'm not disputing what has happened to us as a people. I'm not disputing that at all. I'm not disputing the statistics that are out there. I mean, if you read the Australian history of what happened to the Aborigines back in that time, where they were considered as, just like the Africans of old, but they were part of the Flora and Fauna Act. They weren't even, they were below animals in that retrospect. You know what I mean? So the freedom to vote, just like African Americans, wasn't there. To be looked at as human wasn't there. But there, unfortunately, and I don't think there has been, you have guys like Eddie Mabo and those pioneers in Aboriginal culture and Aboriginal history that stood up, but there wasn't anyone to stand up that had the same effect like someone like a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King on that grand stage for people to then look back and celebrate who they are many years after their death. We have yet to have that pioneer to stand tall to say, hey, you know what? We as a people, whether it be Aboriginal people, whether it be black people in this land, still feel like there's a bit of injustice that's going on. And Kevin Rudd, yes, in 2008, I believe, did do a public apology, but there has been nothing to, I guess, nothing to mend the fence of, we are really sorry. But instead, they're being used as a charity case or a consolation prize when it comes to projects that are going on in Australia. I mean, you have to fill in on a form, are you Torres Strait Islander or Aboriginal? Which means that if you do have those things, you'll most likely get something, not because of the skill that you have, it's because that somewhere along the line, we kind of oppressed you. So this is a way of us saying sorry. And I feel like that is not okay, because that doesn't allow the true talent or the true gift of the person to shine through, but they're being marginalized to the sense that that's all they are and that's who they are and that's all they can be. And they get those pity party rewards based on the fact that they tick, yes, I'm an Aboriginal on a piece of paper. And that is not fair. So what I'm trying to say is that I get everything from all rounds, but something of this topic, you have to take time and hours and days to be like, okay, who's done what, who's done who's done this, who's done that, because as much as there is white on black crime, there's still black on black crime. So I don't feel like I can completely point the finger at the white person and say, hey, you guys are A, B, C, D. Do you get what I'm trying to say in that retrospect? I don't want to be political in that sense and be a hypocrite and say the whites have done everything. That's also wrong.
Well, this is what I would say, because I'm hearing a lot of division in ways that it shouldn't be. First of all, whether you're black, as you stated, or you're African coming in, or you're Aboriginal, I think everyone should just unify under the fact that yes, we all had issues, and if we come together as one community, then we could actually, stand together. Because you're saying that you didn't have anyone in Australia to stand up and be like you said, like a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X,
I
or
mean, we
you know,
have them, but I don't think, and maybe if Australians are listening, they might say that I'm saying something blasphemous. But I'm talking about to the degree of the effect that when you see the things that Martin Luther King did, and there's a Martin Luther King Day, and everyone's banding together to remember him, and you have Black History Month, we don't have that here. We don't have that. It's just like, even if you do Aboriginal studies in high school or in I don't know what the equivalent is in America, but Black history is slowly seeping through where it's become a compulsory element. In high school in Australia, it's kind of like there's one chapter about the Aborigines, and then next, here is this history. So we, I believe, still have a long way to go, where I know the oppression has been big in America, but we still have a long way to go in terms of getting to that same level where people can say, oh yeah, this is what happened. There's a controversy in Australia of Australia Day. One side of Australia celebrates it as this is the day that Australia was born, but the Aboriginals call it Invasion Day. This is the day where you guys came to take our land. And so, what foundation can we stand on to provide any sort of solidarity?
right?
That's where I'm at.
I definitely hear and agree with you. So basically, what you're saying is you don't have no representation equal, just as much as yes, in Black America, yeah, we have fought for years and still fighting to this day, and still don't have equality and equal representation, even though African slaves built this country as you see today as America. And I understand the Aboriginal people, it is Invasion Day because they didn't ask them to come over there. They came and slaughtered them and stole their land. It's just that simple. And they shouldn't be happy about that. But they do need to stand up and definitely get their story out, and then, on the world stage and fight for their rights too, because they're human beings, and they shouldn't be, discounted to one chapter in the book. And then you celebrating all the colonizers and what they have done. And you told me about the apology, that's just nothing but a bunch of deception. You apologize. I mean, what good is that? They need land, they need resources, they need power in that country as well. I mean, don't tell me you apologize, but yeah, you put me in a worse position than what I was before.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
So what could everyone do there, whether you're African, Australian, Aboriginal, what could y'all guys do possibly to get together and fight for those rights that you guys are looking for?
Well, first of all, we have to identify the common goal. Even amongst our own, and this is what I was trying to talk about before, even amongst our own, there's still differences. And so until we can provide a solid front and a sense of unity, the so-called colonizer will look at us and be like, well, they didn't even get along, so why should we get along with them? That's the picture I'm trying to paint. Even in Africa, there's over 50 countries in Africa. They're all beefing with one another. And so the outside is looking at them saying, okay, you want peace and you want us to respect you as people, but you yourselves don't treat each other right. And so what I am trying to say is that we need to get to a point where we treat each other right before we can make the demand for other people to treat us right. Because people are looking at us as a reflection of how we treat each other. And that might be a generic Christian message or a feel-good message, but that's the truth of the matter, is that if we don't celebrate each other's success, because I'm part of a Ghanaian culture where if you're succeeding, they're going to do everything it takes to cut you down. You can go to a certain level and a certain height when it comes to success, but when you get too high, we need to pull you down. And so if that is the mentality in Ghana and Nigeria and South Africa and Ethiopia and other countries where I've gathered with other youth, and the same issues are in those cultures, then we have a long way to go to try and get other people to accept us. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So unity has to be on the forefront first for us before we demand respect from them.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's definitely a topic I can talk about because we have the same issues here in America. within the black community for sure, and we could talk about that. But I would never say our internal issues as a diaspora and as a family, it should predicate on how we're being treated just as human beings. Everyone has issues.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that in order for your message to be heard, you must live your message. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it's a justification for them to treat us bad. I am saying, because the question was, what can we do as a people for our thing to be heard? And what I'm saying in response to that question, in context of that question, is that we need to first gather together and become one people for our message to be heard. Not get to a platform and say, okay, well, we struggled. And then another group of people say, well, we struggled as well. And then another group of people saying, oh, we struggled more than you guys. And then before you know it, us in the community are fighting over who struggled the most. So that's what I'm saying. In context to the question that you just asked, what I'm saying is that people have to gather together to become one people first, have one vision first, identify what the goal is before they can tackle it. Because people will say, okay, we want peace, and we want harmony, and we want unity. And we ask the question, how? And no one can answer the question. Why? Because everyone has a different idea of what unity, what harmony, and what solidarity is. So we need to come to the definition of we need to have one mind, one vision, one goal before we can execute. That's what I'm trying to say. That's my truth. And that's my truth to the question you just asked. I don't want like any additives to say, well, if you're saying that, that means A, B, C, D. No, I'm addressing the question as the question was delivered to me.
Yeah, now that answer is where I go with the whole thing. I'll seek you global unification. I seek us, fighting for our rights all over the globe, not just here in America. And the reason why I responded back in that manner is because I know as a listener and what they hear you say versus what you just said now, then that makes sense, because you have people who follow, who are white supremacists, will say, see he said if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and then people are like, because in relation to them, you could be the best black person in the world, you could unify, and they still want to kill you. So
that's the fault of the listener. The best that we can do as presenters, as you've asked the question and I've delivered it, is answer it and ask it in the context that it's given. Now, if someone chooses to retaliate based on what they heard, but they have a lack of understanding, that's on them, not on me. So there's one thing to be able to communicate what you are saying. It's another way to hear how it's being communicated. So if people are saying that Rodney has just said, well, blacks are attacking blacks, that's the reason why whites are against us, then you have not listened to a word I've said at all for the last maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So what I am saying is that for us to be a stronger unit, okay, a 3-chord strand is hard to break. That's what I'm trying to say. One will chase 1,000, two will chase 10,000. And the reason why that's there is because there's a vision. We are going to chase 10,000. This is how we're going to chase those 10,000. Okay, this is how we're going to execute in chasing those 10,000. Not just say we want change, because in that you need to identify what is the change.
That I definitely do agree with, 100%. We definitely have a unified goal. It's the same thing here in America. You need to have a goal, execute the plan, unify, and stick to it instead of being all these different sects. Just like you over there, maybe Aboriginal or black people, but over here you got black people. Then you divide on religion. That's a big thing here in America. You can't unify off of anything. Now, you stated that it's hard for you to be a Christian in Australia.
Yes.
Why is that?
I guess it's hard to be a Christian in America as well, because you have the elements of, you say it you pledge allegiance and to the flag, and we're all one under God. We say all those things, and the dollar bill says in God we trust. And then in schools they take out the Bible. They say you can no longer pray, but there's Bibles in prisons. And then when something happens in a school and people are shooting and running amok, the first thing they say is, where was God? But you guys are the ones that took God out of the equation in the first place. It comes to a point where the Muslim even gets the privilege and the right to be able to pray in their workplace, but the Christian cannot. It's come to a point where people have taken over the publishing of certain Bibles, and so the historical text or most of the verses that you see in the Bible have been removed because it offends other types of people, other people that live certain types of lifestyles. And so now you have to walk a straight line, because if you want to get a certain job, they will tell you to stop talking about Jesus in order for you to get that position. And that's happened to me personally. No one's told me to stop being black to get that position, but they've told me to stop talking about Jesus to get that position, which is why I say in Australia that the subtlety of being black in this land is that it's more sarcastic towards your culture. They'll degrade you in a sarcastic manner that won't be so adversely aggressive. But when it comes to a Christian, that will cut you down. Do you know what I mean? We have laws in Australia that you cannot build a church in a warehouse because it's against public planning and the building constructs, right? But you can have a Masonic center just down the road and you can have 10 of them and there's no issue. They're coming for the same gathering. They're having the same goal. They're both raising up an offering. Someone's coming up to speak about an agenda that they want to, be able to preach about. But one has the rule of you cannot build a warehouse and have a church in there. And the other is like, yeah, you can have a satanic church down the road and there's no problem with it. So that's why I'm saying, like, and you touched on it, like when you come into Christianity in a different sects, they're all fighting against each other because it's been turned against each other. And then people will say, well, why are you a Christian? Because it's a white man thing and it's a black man thing and it's a this thing, but it's experiential. I experienced Christ, so I know the reality of God in me. But like I said, I have never been told in my life, you cannot be black and get this position. But I have been told as a preacher, as a Christian artist, that when I'm going to a certain place to perform, I cannot mention Jesus. No one will tell me to cover up my blackness, but people will tell me to cover up my Jesus. And that's why I was saying it was, for me, my experience has been harder to be a Christian than to be a black person, because I haven't suffered the persecution of others before me. So someone else's story will be different to mine, and I'm not going to discount that. I'm not going to look down on it. I'm not going to belittle their experience. But what I'm saying in this dispensation, that you can have a Baphomet at holding their 10 commandments of what they want, a satanic church having the rights as Christians to be able to say, well, Satan rules all things. There's nothing you can do about it. And guess what? People will get praise for representing Satan. But when you say, I represent Jesus, no, you can't talk about him here. So, those are the sort of things that I face in my reality, and those are the things I'm navigating around to be able to speak my truth and live my calling.
Well, here in America, I mean, in relation to black people, you can mention Jesus. You can mention Jesus all you want here in America. You can create 100 different churches if you want to, because in the black communities, they got a church on every single corner. But the issue is here in America is that we were given a perverted version of Christianity, and this is why you have a lot of black people who are waking up to that and distancing themselves from what they call so-called Christianity, because of course they lied, they created an image of Christ that Jesus was not no white guy. They come on, anybody who studied it know better than that, and they fashion white supremacy off of their false idol white Jesus, and a lot of people are waking up to that here in America now. Most of us, we are deeply spiritual people as Africans, period. We are definitely more spiritual than anybody else. We are. I tell people all the time, I don't even like the term Christian, because the term Christian is attached to something. I rather say, like the scriptures, I'm a servant of God. That's what Jesus was. He was a servant, and that's what you should do is seek to serve God and his people, right? So
whether it's a label or a lifestyle, what matters at the end of the day is how you live it. Now, the reason why people leave a religion or a belief system is because they never believed in it anyway. They believed in the dream that was associated to it, but they didn't really believe. And the reason why people leave is because they were disappointed because their expectations were way too high that no belief system in the world could ever meet it. Now, I'll say this. When people turn around and say in a scene of natural disaster, where was God when all of this happened? And if God is so good, why did he allow this to happen? Yeah. But when that same thing happens, no one mentions Allah, no one mentions Buddha, no one mentions any other belief system, but they attack the belief system of Christianity. That's under attack. That has to be the truth. You know what I mean? And so if people are turning away to be enlightened, to say, well, I believed in Christ my whole life and I found out he wasn't a white guy. Well, that's on you for not reading your scriptures, because I've never seen a white person in Palestine. I've never seen a white person in Israel. So if you don't know your geography, and I've come to learn that not many people know where Australia is on the map, then that's on you for not doing that research. Because the Bible does say, seek and you shall find. The Bible says, study the scriptures day in and day out. So if you're not listening to that, or you're not reading that, but you're listening to every regurgitated word from some flawed pastor that might be preaching something for his or her selfish gain, I'm sorry, that's on the person. The reason why people are waking up is because they've done the digging. No one has done the digging for them. That's why people are woke. And I applaud them for that. But you don't pin it on the belief system, pin it on the idea that someone sold you a false dream. Whenever you go to a car yard and someone says, "Man, this is in perfect condition, nothing's wrong with it, had no previous owners, you can go away today, no more to pay, everything will be okay." As soon as you leave the lot and it breaks down, guess what? It's your fault. It's in your possession. You didn't do the research to check if the engine was running. You didn't do the research to see if the wheels were okay. You just believed what someone said. You came in, you took the car, and now you're turning around to say all people who are like that are wrong. But no, that's not how it works. You rushed into it based on a belief system or an idea of hope that was sold to you, and you ran with it. And that is the issue of a belief system in the 21st century. No one believes because they believe because of a personal experience. They believe because they've been told to believe. And that is wrong, no matter the belief system.
Right. Well, I'm speaking in the guise of an American black person. Most of us was indoctrinated into Christianity, and also this country allegedly says it's a Christian nation, but we know it's not. It can't follow the 10 Commandments at all. And that's just a simple thing to follow, right? So when it comes to us here in the black, community, a lot of us, the majority of us, go to either Baptist churches, or you have your, your Methodist, AME, just different denominations, Church of God in Christ. You just, black people are heavy on that. But I always tell black people when they get upset, I say, listen, it's not God himself that's doing you this. It's, the people who so-called say they represent God that do these things. So,
that's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah,
Someone
so the
came
majority,
in.
exactly. So the majority of us are waking up, and it's good, because I tell people, Nat Turner, he was a preacher, and he went in and fought back. So the same, like he said, the same scriptures they use to oppress us is the same scriptures that can deliver us. So, we definitely had a lot of people in our history that, use the scriptures to fight white supremacy, and that's what we should do, because white supremacy is an evil thing. But outside of that, I heard you're in Forex.
I am.
And could you tell people about that? Because I've done it just a little bit in the past, where it's kind of like playing a lotto a little bit to me. Like,
okay, let me put a scenario to you. All right, you buy a house for $100,000, and you were told that in 3 years' time that house would triple in value. Okay, and then God forbid, I hope this doesn't happen anymore, a tsunami comes and wipes out your house. Do you get that money?
No.
Why?
Unless you got an insurance plan.
But even the act of God doesn't cover the amount of the house.
Well, most insurance plans cover, unless you cover right, flood, windstorm, fire. Like, for instance, I live in the hurricane zone. I would get my money back on the insurance plan.
But what I'm saying is that you were told that within 3 years' time, the value of your house will increase times 3, right? And I'm saying that value times 3, even if a hurricane came through, will you get that money on return?
No, not at times 3, no.
Okay, cool. What I'm going to say, and people are not going to agree with that, is that when you buy a house and don't do the proper research, and you know the risk and you decide to buy it anyway, that is the same as Forex. If you do not know how to analyze your chart, or to see how the trend is going, or to see where price is going, you're the same person that will buy a house in a zone expecting to get a return on your investment, knowing that there's a possibility that your house can be knocked down. Hear me. The reason why people think it's gambling is because people are not educated. Which is more of a scam? You tell me. To be able to study and do what the banks are doing with your money, or to go to university for 4 years and pay that back over 40? Which is more of the gamble?
For me, capitalism in itself is a big gamble, but I feel going to school, if you get the right degree, could pay you more over time than involving yourself just with a bank.
Okay, so how come there are still people, there are so many people who went to medical school, but there's still a shortage of doctors?
The needs are great.
The needs are great.
Yeah, especially here in America, for sure. The needs are great.
So if 20,000 people are studying medicine, why are there not 20,000 doctors?
It's hard to, I guess, for some people to get through.
Why is it that 80% of people who study something when they start university end up doing a career or a degree that's totally opposite of what they started in? Hear me. The reason why I address it like this is because when people associate Forex with gambling, I know they don't know what they're talking about. I know they don't know what they're talking about, because if I say you start a radio show and you're going to go to talk to an audience with I guess the mission to be able to reach people, you don't know if you're going to reach those people, but you made the marketing plan, you made the connections, you made the research to know how you're going to reach your audience. You put in the work to be able to plant now and reap later, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the platform that you're at. It took work. Now, if I decide tomorrow that I want to start my own radio show without putting in the work that you put in, do you think I'm going to be as successful as you?
No, it's going to take a little time.
No, exactly. And the reason why people don't last in Forex is because they don't want to put in the time, like you put in the time to do radio. They don't want to put in the time to study how Forex works. After all, if it's a gamble, why do the banks use your money to make interest? They make 300 or 400% of your money and only give you back 2 per year. If it is a gamble. People are not properly educated to know that this is a tool that you can use on your smartphone to be able to study, put time aside, maybe 14 hours a month, which is 30 hours a day, to be able to gain the skills to do what the bank is doing, except you don't have to pay interest. It goes back into your pocket. The reason why people fail at this is because they don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the effort. They will sow the dream just like the church. They will sow the dream just like your workplace. They will sow the dream just like education systems. I'm not dissing education, but I'm dissing the idea that you're pretty much telling the person that if you study this and at the end of your degree, you'll be able to get the desired job that you want. There are so many professors who have got their PhDs, but they're janitors. So that's a lie. That's a gamble. Do you get what I mean? But with Forex, you got to understand the history of how it works. Who's behind it all? Why do certain currencies fall and rise? How does even President Trump's tweet even affect the markets? How do you read the news? How do you use your trend line? How do you use all these tools and make it unified to the point where you can now make money? I've slept on floors. I've slept in the park. I've slept on the floor at my work. I have done it all to be able to get to the point where I'm now educating 70,000 people around the world to do the same. And I guarantee you, out of the 70,000 people or the hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, only very few make it in because they're running to the person with the answers, but they don't want to do the study themselves, just like the church.
Well, let me.
Which is why. Sorry?
No, so let me give you the backstory to me with the Forex. I had a company that came approach us and wanted us to possibly do some advertising. So they told me about Forex. I said, what is that? Because I know about trading stocks, but I never heard of Forex at the time period. Yep. And like I said, that's just something I never knew about. So they gave us a password to get in and let us see how it is to to trade the different currencies. So when I likened it to gambling, is where it's like, okay, you put so much and hey, the currency go up, you make money. Currency go down, well, you lose money. And I heard a lot of people, for instance, and maybe you can correct me on this. Maybe you can correct me on this. During the housing crash in America, they said a lot of people made a lot of money off of that. Now, was it through Forex?
No, that was through the banks. The banks are dirty people. Now, stocks, if your stock goes down, yes, you lose money. But if the US dollar goes down, I can still make money off the US dollar going down. Up or down, I make money both ways. And that's the education, like I said, that people are not accustomed to. So with Forex, the stock market is barely even a couple of million in terms of volume, which is why stocks are so slow. which is why you put in maybe 10 grand and you're going to hope to try and make 30 or 40% in 12 months. Whereas you can make 34 or 40%, depending on your experience. Remember, results are not typical. You can make that in a day if you know what you are doing. And you can make that money going up or going down. It comes to a measure of learning the skill, learning the craft. People are willing to wait a whole year for a 50-cent rate, but they don't want to put in 30 days to study how this thing works. It all comes down to research and being enlightened. Just like church, just like everything else, people, especially in this generation, people want that get rich quick. And these Forex companies are preying on that because they'll sell you a dream that if you invest $500 today, in 3 months, that could be $15,000. And people are like, oh, sweet. So they go get a loan, they go borrow off their friends, and all of a sudden that company crashes, your money is gone, and now you're saying Forex is a scam. But people don't open the books and be like, man, there are things called Elliott waves. There are things called Fibonacci, using your indicators, RSI, MACD, all of these things, years of study that I have sacrificed, all so I can get into a position where I'm educating 70,000 people on a daily basis. Now, you can call it a scam if you want, but I'm laughing my way to the bank. Why? Because I put in the work. Now, if anyone wants to learn how to put in that work and use the skill, I mentor, I think about, what is it now, like 200 people, and that's by choice. That's like, okay, if I can, if I want to. But I have a dedicated group that I have trained from scratch, where people who have lost their way, people who have gotten into broken relationships because the partner thought they weren't making enough, so they left them. They thought they were nobodies. Now they're making 6- and 7-figure incomes because they put in the work. Everything in life, what I've come to learn is that what you sow is exactly what you will reap in due time. Whatever you put in the sowing time is what you will reap in the harvest time. The issue with Forex and the issue with people is that they want to see the money work. So they're going to make a calculation and say, okay, if I get $1,000, I want to see that multiply in 30 days. But you're willing to wait for the bank to pay you 2% after 12 months. It shows you the mentality of people to know that they have the power to make 2% a day, but the bank will give them that after 12 months. So if anyone's listening and they want to know more about it, what I want to say to them first is, don't let anybody handle your money, handle your own money. Because it's better to lose your money than someone to lose your money for you. And what I mean by that is, don't trust these companies that say that they have all this experience in the world, they have no FX book, they have no credibility, they have no backstory, but they just come, they phoned you randomly and said, I'm gonna trade your money for you. Don't trust that. It is better for you to open a book, go to YouTube, or find a mentor that can teach you the highs and lows. And after a time, I don't know how long it's going to take you. Some people might take a year, some people it might take 6 months, but it will take time. Like I said, if you can put over 13 years, 14, 15 years into education, starting from the age of 5 all the way to 25, putting 4 years into college to get that job that you wish to get, then I'm sure you can reserve time for a year or 2 or 3 to study the craft to be able to make money on your smartphone.
Yeah, and a lot of people, unfortunately, within our community, never even heard the term Forex. So of course, not all, but a good portion just got even educated on that. Seriously, like I said, I heard of it. I told you I played with it, and that's what I likened it to. But it's deeper than that. Like, some people look at what I do and they say, oh, all he's doing is just posting a video. That ain't nothing to that. But behind the scenes is a lot more than just posting. What you're saying is a lot more than just putting money up. It's a science to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I definitely understand that. So, where can people go possibly, maybe for different type of apps they can use, like on the Apple or Android? Let's say they want to just try it out at least to get started. Say,
there's a app called MetaTrader 4. You can open a demo account. You can play with invisible money and you can test it out yourself. if you're not accustomed to the terms or knowing how to trade, it's going to look confronting. You don't know what all these, lines and candles and all that stuff means. What I say, just like in anything, just like in life, you need to find a mentor, okay? When you're in church, you find the pastor or find an elder in the church to be able to help you groom in the ways of the church. When you're in the mosque, you're looking for an imam or a sheikh to be able to groom you to get to that next level. You're looking for a monk if you're a Buddhist. You're looking for that college professor if you're in school. You're looking for that big brother if you're in a community project. So you need to be able to find someone that can take you to where they are and help you get to that next level. That's the first and foremost, because I don't think anyone can grow on their own. I've never heard of anything or any hobby where someone said, I'm going to learn this on my own and grow on my own. I'm going to become somebody. They had a distant mentor. They had something that they were learning from, or someone that they were learning from to be able to be as great as they are. So you can play around with it, but chances are you're not going to know what you're doing. You can go on YouTube videos and see what support and resistance is, but if you don't have someone that's next to you or someone that can get on a Skype call with you and go hand in hand and say, look, this is how you draw your horizontal line, this is how you draw a trend line, you're going to be going around and round in circles. So what I always say is find someone that can do the craft and get the information from them so you can build the tools to become a greater person. MetaTrader 4 if anyone wants to try out Forex, or you can just connect with me on Facebook and I can take you through how I learned.
All right. So how can people get in contact with you, Rodney, so they could maybe ask you some questions about Australia, or they want to get involved with Forex?
Well, my Facebook is public. It's just my name, Rodney, last name Ahenkan. Add me. I've maxed out on friends, so just follow me. Send me an inbox. I'm pretty active because I barely sleep. Money doesn't sleep, so why should we? So yeah, you can inbox me and I can take you through. If you want to talk about anything on any level, just hit me up.
Okay, not a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, so if you want to contact Rodney, we'll put the his contact down for Facebook, and you can contact him there. I'm pretty sure he can get you definitely in the right direction. So, Rodney, I want to thank you today for speaking to us about what's going on in Australia, and also speaking about Forex, because Forex is different things that we all need to learn in the Black community as well, because a lot of us just don't know that, and they hide this information from us. So we can't make any money. So if someone like you know the game to it, then hey, we need to learn from you. So and I suggest people do that. Especially a lot of you brothers out there, learn some games from your brother, because we all need to make some money. So
brothers need to make the cheese to take care of their queens. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There you go. So Rodney, thank you for joining us today, man. It was a great conversation, and just let us know if you need anything.
For sure. God bless you. Thank you.